If you're looking for an easy way to get the exotic sniper rifle Cloudstrike, this might be the guide for you. Today's video, we're going to show you how to farm Empire Hunts quickly and efficiently to get Cloudstrike, to finish your Crystocrene armor set, or maybe even to get a few enhancement prisms along the way. Each run of this should take about 7 minutes or so to complete. It takes roughly 5.5 to 6 minutes to complete. There's about a minute or so of dialogue from Varix, and then once it says mission complete, you can requeue to continue farming. I'd suggest doing this on hero difficulty, which is 1220 recommended power. The main reason for that is because this is the lowest difficulty that has champions in it. So there's barrier champions, overload champions, and a modifier where vandals will spawn one of those mines that slows you down after you kill them, so you just gotta watch out for that. As far as the loadout goes, I'd recommend doing this on Revenant Hunter. I wouldn't worry too much about class or subclass, because the most important part of this loadout is going to be your weapons and armor perks. But if you're looking at my loadout, I use Cold Snap Grenades and Shatter Dive to get rid of a few ads here and there. The main thing that you want to concern yourself with is going to be the weapons and armor. So for weapons, I'm using Night Watch, which is a scout rifle that I'm using to stagger overload champions when needed. For my special weapon, I'm using the Deafening Whisper grenade launcher. It's a void grenade launcher that has a wave frame, which means when you shoot the ground, it projects a wave in front of it. The main reason I'm using this is because in this Nightfall specifically, the Dark Priestess, there's only void shields that you have to worry about. There's a Minotaur or two, and then a few servitors that have void shields. And so having this on is a really good idea. The main thing that makes this loadout work though is using the Lament. You don't really need to even stagger champions in order to burst them down. It has so much burst damage that even an overload captain goes down in a few swings. And obviously barrier champions, they go down really quickly against the Lament. The quest for it takes about an hour to complete, so that's why I recommend it. If you don't have it yet and you don't want to use it, you can use Falling Guillotine. I'd recommend staggering overload champions with that loadout just because it doesn't do quite as much burst damage. But either way should work pretty well for you. As far as armor goes, the main perk you want to have equipped is Lucent Blade and a way to get charged with light. The main reason for that is for Lucent Blade, it massively increases your damage output when you're using a sword while you're charged with light. You use one light attack to proc Keened, which lasts about 6 seconds, and then after that, champions just go down really quick. It only takes about 2 to 3 swings to eliminate champions and to phase the boss later on. The other notable perks I have in my armor is again a way to get charged with light and overload rounds for my scout rifle in case I'm not near a champion and want my teammate to finish it off for me. And then I also have powerful friends on just in case, like if my teammate's running a similar loadout that involves Lucent Blade for example, they can get charged with light really easily too, because it's going to be happening constantly with masterworked weapons. The only other recommendations I'll say for armor is to have Sword Scavenger and Sword Ammo Finder on, just to make sure you always have sword ammo for Lament. Lament itself is really efficient when it comes to ammo usage, just to make sure you have enough ammo at the boss at the end if you've been using a lot of sword ammo and not getting a whole lot of drops throughout the run. And speaking of the run, that's what we're going to show now. So on here I'm just going to fast forward through all the downtime, but make sure I show all the champions that are on screen. I mentioned earlier that there are 9 champions in this Empire Hunt. The first one is right outside the building that you go into. It's an overload captain, so my teammate was able to burst it down pretty quickly here. And then you just continue up to the lift. This room here only has melee enemies, so eliminating this room as much as you can to get the door open is the idea. And you can see here my teammate had a grenade up. Shatter Dive combos really well with that, so just take advantage of that whenever you can. There are several rooms throughout this Empire Hunt where you have to eliminate a certain amount of enemies before the door opens, so just keep that in mind as you do this. This next part here, if you go up this pipe, you have a nice angle to get a good shot onto that servitor. Now usually the servitors take about 2 shots. I was a little bit off target on a few, so I had to use my finisher. The Minotaurs take 1 hit directly with the wave launcher, so it's really good here. And up ahead is our next champion with the overload captain. So we're just going to make sure we can stagger him, get him out of the way. It's nice to be able to charge up your overload rounds on your scout rifle before you actually want to come in for the stagger, just to make sure he stays put while you use Lament. Again, if you're good with Lament, you don't need to actually stagger him, but sometimes the teleporting gets a little bit annoying, so you want to just be aware of that. In this room specifically, there's a lot of servitors and shanks. You don't really actually need to kill any of them. It's just fun to use the grenade launcher, so I just went through there to use it. And then our next champion here is a barrier hobgoblin. Again, you don't need to stagger him, just a 1-2-3 combo with light, light, heavy. Works really well with Banshee's Wail. And just got to be aware of the Minotaur. Again, the grenade launcher works really well here. And then this spot, you definitely want to try to get charged with light. The Brig does have a good amount of health, so sometimes you have to do a 4 or 5 combo with the sword. So 4 light attacks and then a heavy, or 3 light attacks and then a heavy. And then there's another champion here. It's a barrier servitor. And then as you saw, you could really rip through its health with Lament. This room's really nice to use your grenade launcher here because the enemies all line up along that straightaway. And this is again another room where you want to eliminate a certain amount of enemies. There is an overload captain there that you want to take note of. And then there's a few guys that are invisible that you want to just try to get cleared. That seems to unlock the door most of the time. Alright, and then you just navigate through this hallway. Going to speed this up just to make it a little bit easier to watch. And then you come into this next room drop down here. I didn't used to super right away here, but you get another super back if you super here versus the next brig. And so that's why I choose to do that in this room. There's going to be 2 barrier servitors, one spawns after the other. And there's also a captain here that is actually a little bit dangerous with the amount of damage that he gets on you. I was able to get the servitor and the captain with my super, and then Lament just does the rest of the job for you. So that second barrier champion is down. Using the throwing stars is really good to clear out a lot of shanks because they don't have a lot of health, so it just one-shots them and it chains off of them. So it might be a good strategy to keep in mind if you're using Stasis Hunter. And then you just continue on to the next room. So this room up ahead is actually where I used to use my super before I decided to start using it in the room that you just saw. But if you have Lucent Blade ready, you can actually just do a 5 combo and then a single light attack and it'll take care of him without anything else, even if you're by yourself. So again, the Lament just does all the work here for you. And there is also this overload captain behind the brig, so just make sure you eliminate him to make sure you get your platinum rewards for the best possible drops. And then this room here, it's just a regular captain and a bunch of wretches. So using the throwing stars and swords, grenade launcher works really well here. And this is the last champion of the run. It's a barrier servitor, so just sword it to death and then clear the room of dregs and vandals and you're ready for the boss fight after this. So for the boss, there's not really like a major strategy going on. The boss has 4 damage phases and you want to just get through each of those as quickly as possible. So for the first damage phase, you just walk right up to her and you're going to do this every single time, just sword it to get to the next phase. And once she goes immune, there's going to be 3 servitors with void shields. Easiest way to take them out that I found is to use the grenade launcher 3 times and then finish them. I was low on special ammo at first, so that's why I used my scout rifle a bit to get this one ready to finish. But for the most part, you could just use 3 grenade launcher shots, finish her, and then get to the next damage phase on the boss. I didn't quite get to a second super on this run. I don't have a whole lot of intellect on this build, so that's part of the reason why. But honestly, you don't really even need it. It just helps a bit with ad control. If you're really just trying to focus down the boss and you can survive the stasis and the servitor phases, then you should be more than fine for doing this. And so at this point, I'm just going to let the rest of the video speak for itself. I'm going to head out of here. You'll see what I meant earlier about the dialogue taking a little while to complete and have the mission end. So just keep in mind it takes a bit. Just be patient with it. And then once you see mission complete, you can just go right back into the director and queue it again for another run. And so with that, I'm going to head off. Appreciate you guys checking out the video, and I'll see you again in the next one.
She's down, pals. Get forward. That's all of them. All of Aramis's lieutenants. Her entire council.
The reign of the Kell of Darkness is ended. Thanks to the Guardian. But in death, Aramis becomes myth, immortal. Her legacy will go on. New champions will